Well, the NFL has kicked off yet another season, and who better to have a deep dive discussion into what we can expect this football season than local sports agent and attorney Kelli Masters. Great to see you.
Great to see you as well.
What's
Glad
new
to be
with you,
back.
Kelli?
It's a busy time, but I feel like I say that every time we talk.
Right, sure. Because you stay,
Yes.
you're repping athletes in baseball, football, Olympics, among other sports.
Yes. And I think the last time I was here, I had maybe just returned from Korea with the Olympics. And then, I have football season, of course, just kicked off this past weekend.
Which leads me to my most hard-hitting question of this whole interview. Are the Dallas Cowboys really going to be this bad?
Can we all just have a moment to pray for Dak Prescott?
Right.
It's their offense struggled.
16-8 loss, 8 points. Yeah.
It was so, and it looked worse than that. It really, and I'm blessed to represent Blake Jarwin, who's one of the tight ends, and it's amazing where he has come. He was a star at Oklahoma State. He was on the practice squad for Dallas last year for part of the season, for about half the season. Ended up being elevated to the active roster. And last year, he was inactive most games last year, but obviously got to wait in the wings and learn from one of the best ever, Jason Witten. And then surprisingly, Witten retires in the offseason. James Hanna moves on. And suddenly Blake finds himself competing for the starting role. And so you saw him a lot this past week out there. Jeff Swaim is really slated as their starter. But Blake is right in the mix, especially when they have the two tight ends out there.
Has traditionally used tight ends quite a bit.
They do. And so he'll have a lot of opportunities. I can say this, I was not at the game this last weekend, but when I think there was a throw to him and he was wide open. I mean, everyone assumed he would have scored, and my phone lit up. Just everyone, oh, he was so open, he was so open. And so let's hope that Dak can kind of pull himself together and the offensive line can step up. I know they've had some injuries, but
just a couple of years ago, Dak looked like all worlds. Like, wow, Tony Romo, get out of here. Let this guy play.
He did, and to me, he looked like he was playing a little scared the whole game. So let's hope it was just getting the nerves out and that we have a better season with Dallas.
Well, let me ask you this. What does a Sunday look like in your world?
It varies from week to week. So this past week, I made the decision. I have been on the road constantly pretty much all year. So I made the decision to stay at home for week one. I'd already gone to training camp, done the training camp tour, saw my guys. And so I sat basically on my couch all day long on Sunday.
Now, does your couch
back and forth
have multiple screens? Just you're wearing out the remote? What's the Kelli Cave look like?
Well, I'm definitely a big believer in being able to access all games. So I have access to all games. I have my laptop open and I'm flipping back and forth between my TV, several games on my TV, several games on my laptop. So that's, in my ideal world, I would have a woman cave and have all the screens to watch the games and not have to flip around. But typically I can figure out who's going to be playing at different times and plan it out from there. But this coming week, I leave tomorrow for Cincinnati. I'll be at Thursday Night Football to watch my Ravens player, Alex Collins.
Okay.
I will be in Dallas for the Sunday Night Football game on Sunday, and then I'll be in Chicago for Monday Night Football.
When you go to Dallas and Jerry World, do you watch the field? Do you watch the Jumbotron?
Doesn't everyone have a hard time not watching the Jumbotron?
So huge.
It's massive. I go before the game. I'm on the field. Sometimes my players will acknowledge me. Most of the time they're in the zone, but I do like being down on the field before the game. And usually try to take some friends or maybe my players' family to see it from that perspective. And then, I'm like everybody else. I have a hard time watching the actual field when that screen is so massive. But it's a great venue. It's probably the one that I've been to the most. And I've been to all but 3 stadiums in the NFL.
Really?
So maybe I'll check off the rest of them on my bucket list this year.
What's left?
Carolina. Not going there this weekend.
Nope.
With the hurricane. Pittsburgh and Philadelphia.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Producer Paige hails from the Philly area.
I've been to Philly, but I've never been to a game.
I've really not been to Philly, so it's on my bucket list as well.
Yeah.
Seattle, Chicago. Is that in Chicago?
It's in Chicago. And
man, they got to be thinking we're so close to starting off the season great, and then Green Bay comes back.
And they obviously getting Mac in the trade was huge. So we'll see how that all plays out.
All right, as I mentioned, Kelli Masters, attorney and sports agent. So let me ask you this. In your world, how much are you interacting with players as the season goes on?
depends from player to player.
Okay.
I'm at a game almost every weekend. I obviously wasn't this past weekend, but I'm physically present somewhere with at least one or two or more of my clients just to spend time with them. I'm at their games, obviously. We'll either go to dinner the night before or after if it's an earlier game, and just really catch up on life and talk through things. I have a couple of players that are in really important years contract-wise,
Gotcha.
so we're going to be discussing business throughout the year, but also helping them. It's really my job to help them focus on what they need to do their job at the highest level, and then I try to take care of the rest. And there are always things to deal with, whether it's football related or not football related. They have very busy lives as professional athletes, and a lot of it falls on my shoulders to help them.
You can learn more about Kelli, her website, kmmsports.com, the various services that they provide. Walk me through a little bit of the mechanics of what a work week looks like for you. For example, this morning, we can keep that at a 30,000 foot level.
Sure. So obviously we're dealing with a very, it's an intense sport. It is it's very, very popular sport. It's everything that goes on in my players' lives is potentially newsworthy. So I'm constantly staying on top of as much as I can, every issue that affects my players. I have a player who is unfortunately dealing with some lingering injury issues that have been ongoing since the off season, and finally had to do an injury settlement yesterday for him. Can't get into the details, but that's the crazy thing is, growing up watching football, or maybe the casual football fan will watch a game and they'll see a player go down with an injury, and it's unfortunate and it's heartbreaking. But there are so many issues that are impacted at that moment, and I have to leap into action and work with the team trainers, the doctor, getting a lot of times a second opinion on an injury for a player. Players have the right to have their own doctor to do a second opinion, they get to choose where they have surgery if that's needed, planning out rehab, and then planning out the future role with the team and whether or not a team is going to put a player on IR. Teams can only bring back 2 players off of IR each year, so they have to be designated at a certain time. So there's that, weighing that out, whether a player should go on IR or not. Once a player, now a lot of people don't know this, a player cannot be cut by an NFL team while they're hurt without reaching some sort of an agreement regarding a settlement and pay, or stashing the player on IR. And so we made the decision to go ahead and do a settlement. That way my player can come back. He has to wait a certain number of weeks if he goes back to the original team, but other teams can sign him earlier than that. So my phone was pretty busy this morning with teams that are wanting to know the details and wanting to bring him in.
Okay.
He is in demand. And so I let him know, you've got a lot of love out there, that we've got to decide, do you want to keep building on what you've built with your current team and wait it out to make sure that opportunity is still there, or do you want to see what else is out there? So those have been the discussions I've had with my player this morning, and it's every week it's dealing with maybe fines on the field, or maybe a player has a uniform violation, or I have one player that wears a very dark visor. We have to make sure that that's approved for the season. Otherwise, he gets fined. Players can't just wear what they want. They have to get it approved, and they have to wear their socks a certain way. And so I'm dealing with a lot of on-the-field type of issues, contract issues, players that are currently not on rosters, finding them opportunities on practice squad. I have one player that's headed to Canada probably tomorrow. So lots of moving parts, and I'm managing it all. And on top of that, I have a player that just made his major league debut for the Astros.
Josh James.
Yes,
Very exciting.
Very exciting.
And for the Astros, fantastic team.
Great team, and their manager, AJ Hinch, has been a friend of mine and my family for
Midwest City,
a
right?
long time. I hesitate to even say several decades. And so it's great to have had a player make his major league debut really under the lights for such a great team with such a great coach. And I'm thrilled for him. Josh has been battling through the minor league system for 5 years. He had a sleep apnea disorder that he overcame, and actually in overcoming that, saw his velocity jump rapidly. And as anyone that watched his debut, not only was he pitching on the mound for the first time as a major league player, he broke records. He hit 101.1 on the gun, not just once but 3 times.
Wow.
So I think he had some adrenaline pumping for that game, but he followed it up with a great appearance in relief in Boston.
Well, if you're hitting triple digits, that'll keep you around.
He should stay around, and he also has a lot of control. He has some great. He's a great changeup and a great slider, so he'll be hopefully around for a very long time.
Your team's growing a lot.
It is. I refer to my agency as my family, my KMM family, and yes, we are. We've grown significantly this year, and I've been around. Goodness, I mean, I've been practicing law for 18, 19 years now. I started KMM back in 2005, end of 2005, early 2006. And it's been a long process, but it's exciting to see the foundation that we've laid over the years with just doing things the right way and working with great people that we're now experiencing the growth we've always hoped to.
Back to various issues you have to deal with, NFL, kneeling for the national anthem. What are you hearing from the players? What do you tell your players and clients?
That became, for me, a great teaching moment or teachable moment between me and my players, and also between my players, and discussing the issue. And yeah, I think the NFL thought it was going to be something that wasn't going to be a continuing issue, and it is. The discussion that we've all had is, players are interested in using their platform, obviously, and I am all in favor of, one of the reasons I got in the business was seeing young people who suddenly had access to a platform and to resources that most people don't.
So you're not discouraging them to use their voice?
But we also discussed what are the most effective ways to use your platform and to use your voice, and what is the right time and place. And I think that's been the biggest issue, where players are digging their heels in. Those players that want to protest are digging their heels in. The NFL and sponsors and fans, you're hearing tremendous emotion and strong feelings on both sides. And I think the key that I've seen is let's have a conversation, let's create a dialogue, but let's create the right dialogue. And sadly, I think what we saw was maybe some players that truly wanted to make an impact and felt very strongly about certain issues and wanted to bring attention to those issues, but instead the conversation became about something totally different, unintentionally, and offended a lot of people. And I see both sides. I see why people are so offended or emotional on both sides. And I think my encouragement to my players is let's talk about creating the right dialogue instead of saying, well, no one should be offended, and the people over here saying, well, I'm offended, tell me why I shouldn't be offended. Let's get away from who should be offended and who should be insulted, and why what players are trying to accomplish shouldn't be offensive to people when people have a right to be offended. And that became the dialogue, instead of how can we use our platform and use our resources to make an impact for social issues that matter. And you see players, even yesterday, there were a number of examples of players go out in the community on their day off and really do make an impact. But the protests overshadowed that and took away from that, and I think that's unfortunate. So I think the solution that at least I've discussed with all of my players, and we all basically agree, is that let's find ways that are impactful to use our voice in the right time and place, and let's really take a look at what are the conversations we want to create, and what's the most effective way to create those. Understanding, that's the thing, and I think maybe you and I have talked about this before, is football players make great money to play a game because they have fans. And because of that, they have to keep in mind their fans don't all believe the same things. Their fans don't all agree on issues. Play the game, enjoy the fruits of your labor because you have fans, and then find ways that are truly impactful to make a difference with your voice and your resources. And I think that can be accomplished. I think right now it still feels like everybody has their heels dug in, and we're not getting anywhere. And I think that the goals of all sides are not mutually exclusive. I feel like we can find a way that we're not unintentionally hurting people or offending people and still accomplishing the things we want to accomplish.
Very interesting. This is a very interesting conversation. I want to get your thoughts on Serena Williams now. We're chatting with Kelli Masters, sports attorney and sports agent. I was in New York City last weekend, crossing off the U.S. Open from my bucket list. And the match I happened to see was Serena and Osaka.
You were there.
In the women's final. And I'm sure you've encountered this in the various arenas and stadiums you've been at.
Sure.
You're there, something's happening, the crowd is so loud, you're not real sure what's going down. And that was the case Saturday, sitting in the stadium there at the Billie Jean King Tennis Center. You could sort of hear the chair umpire say, hey, violation, point, game. But you're like, I'm not real sure what's going on, because you couldn't hear the conversation between Serena and Carlos. Your thoughts on what went down and then how that was handled? Perhaps from Serena's perspective, or perhaps on how the media has weighed in.
You know, Serena is, I mean, I think if any athlete deserves to be called greatest of all time, she's definitely one of them.
She certainly earned it on the court.
Absolutely, and incredible athlete. Also very, very fired up. That's not something that's new for Serena. She's always been vocal. She's always been very, dramatic is not the right word, but she's always been demonstrative. I don't know if you remember this. I remember growing up watching John McEnroe play. And part of his persona was that. You
gotta be kidding me, he says to the
Yes,
ref.
And he was so vocal, and it was kind of part of his persona, and everyone just kind of went, well, that's John McEnroe. Serena has come under so much criticism.
You think it's a double standard?
Potentially. I do, and I think it's not the first time that she's had an outburst. Maybe it's the one that we're all focused on right now. But in essence, that's part of who she is. And I can, again, I sound like I'm being wishy-washy, but I can see both sides. I can see that that's just who she is. She felt like she was getting called out for the wrong reasons, that it was sexist. I don't know, I can't make a determination on why things went down the way they did. But I do know this, I've listened to a number of athletes weigh in on both sides of the issue. And I think the hardest part for me is that Serena is such a role model. And I think she has to keep that in mind, that yes, that's part of her personality, that's part of the way she plays the game and approaches the game, but there are kids watching her. And does she want to be that role model? I can look back at John McEnroe and think I would never want my kid to grow up and be like that. And I don't know that he was trying to be a role model. He was just being himself. So I think that's what I would hope she would keep in mind, is that people watch my actions and they can make their own judgments on whether or not that was right or wrong for her to do what she did.
It was an interesting situation to sit through, and I'll say one thing. The New York crowd, of course, was pro Serena, and good for Naomi Osaka for staying focused and playing well, because she was clearly the better player that day. But also, you could see this match was probably going to end pretty fast regardless. For the ref to take a game away, everybody's like, hey, I paid money for these tickets.
Right.
Why are you shortening my game?
Right, yeah, why do you have to jump in there? So, very interesting.
All right, one more interesting topic, gambling in sports. I saw where the WinStar Casino here in Oklahoma has a deal with the Dallas Cowboys. What do you think of the future of gambling in pro sports?
Here's the reality
and then I guess, dovetailing off that, what would you tell your athletes?
I think we're still figuring it out. And honestly, it's the thing that we have to remember about professional sports. As much as I want it to be a great platform that promotes great things in life, it's still a business, and it's about making money.
Big money.
And there's a lot of money in gambling. And I don't think that, for a long time it was the NFL wanted to protect the integrity of the game. But there's so much money to be made in gambling that it was inevitable, I guess, that things were going to start changing in that regard. And I still, the discussions that I have with my players is we see what's going on in the business. I want them to understand the business that they're in and the things that affect the business that they're in. But integrity is still integrity, and they still get to make a decision on what they stand for as individuals.
It's like you're a parent to these guys.
So yeah,
and ladies.
Very much so. But I think we're going to have to figure it out as we go. And it's, I have my own personal opinions, but I think money drives everything, for better or for worse in the NFL, and in marketing, and everything that we see out there is ultimately driven by making money. So yeah, I'm one of the few that kind of holds on to the hope that integrity is more important. But I think we're just going to have to figure it out as we go.
All right, I'll get you out of here on a couple quick questions.
Yeah.
Talking with Kelli Masters, sports agent and attorney, kmmsports.com for more information on her business and the various things she's involved with. How many OU games will you attend this year?
As many as possible.
Yeah.
It's right in my backyard, and I've been a Sooner since I was very, very young, and I represent players from any school, and will attend other colleges.
Just throwing that out there, right?
Yeah, I'm not limiting. No, I do. I represent players from OSU. I represented Longhorns, and some of my Sooner fans are saying, "What are you doing?" But I have players from all over the country. But I still love to go to OU games, and the atmosphere is something that I grew up with. It's home, basically. So I'll go to as many as I can, and I'm excited. I think they're going to have a great year. Off
to a good start. State Fair is starting this week. Are you a State Fair person? Do you have a favorite food if you went to the State Fair?
Oh my goodness, it's been a while since I've been to the State Fair. I'm not a big cinnamon roll person, but every time I get to the State Fair, it's like the first thing that I can smell.
Yeah.
So that, or pretty much anything fried on a stick is good with me. So. Love State Fair food.
You office not far from where we are here in downtown Oklahoma City. Scooters are everywhere. Have you tried one of the scooters?
I haven't, and most of the time I'm in high heels, and I can already picture like what it's going to look like when I wipe out. I was walking to a lunch appointment yesterday, and a lady dressed very professionally in heels was standing on a scooter going down,
handling
and
it?
I thought she was handling it like a pro, and I thought I would need a helmet and knee pads, and it scares me to death. But hey, if you're running late for a meeting, it would be a good option to get there a little quicker.
Might be able to. Well, actually, might be faster than driving these days with all the construction downtown.
With all the construction, I am excited about the streetcars. I saw one the other day on a test run, and I'm interested to see how it works downtown. But I'm really excited about that.
Final question for you. I saw this morning that Dancing with the Stars had released their new roster for this year.
Yeah.
Would you ever go on it? And or would you encourage your clients to go on it?
I would absolutely encourage my clients to go on it. I don't care to be a star, so though I watched the reveal this morning, and I was honestly saying, half the time, like, who are these people? I don't know this person. How are they famous? I need to Google them to find out why they're stars. From a dancing perspective, I would love it. I grew up dancing, and I would love that aspect of it, but I'm not a star. So at least I don't feel like one.
She's a star in our book. Kelli Masters, ladies and gentlemen, sports attorney and agent. We always appreciate your time and enjoy the conversation.
Thank you so much.
Safe travels to you.
Thank you.